Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs. So a question that I get a ton from aspiring podcasters is, do I really need a website for my podcast? So today I'm going to be diving into that question and sharing my thoughts on if having a website for your podcast is necessary or not. So let's dive in. But before we dive in, I did want to share a little bit about my free step-by-step podcast submission checklist. So if you haven't launched your podcast yet and you are looking to do so and you're looking to make this launch very seamless and easy, then you want to check out this checklist. It's going to help and give you everything you need to confidently launch your podcast. So to sign up for the checklist, you can head to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/checklist and grab your free checklist today. So let's dive into the episode. So my answer to this question is very simple. So yes, I definitely recommend having a website for your podcast, but it does not need to be a website that is specific to your podcast. So for example, I have savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com, but it doesn't need to be that. It can be on your main website. It doesn't need to be a totally separate website if you don't want it to be, if you don't have the time to maintain that, totally fine. But I will say it is super important to direct your listeners somewhere, whether that is to your regular website or a podcast specific website. And let me tell you the 4 reasons why. So number 1 is you get those page views. You want to get those page views to your website. You don't just want them hanging out on your podcast player and then, completely jumping off and then never going to your website. And once you get those page views, get them on your website, the chances are once the listener is there, they will continue to click around and they may stumble upon your offers while they're there. So that's a really great reason to have a website because, people are going to want to look at the show notes every so often. So when they do, that gives them the opportunity to see what else you have to offer and potentially sign up for a freebie or sign up for your courses or anything like that. So it's really important. Number 2, it is good for SEO. So if you have a website, that means you probably also have show notes on your website. So this helps increase your search engine rankings and allows you to, just show up on search engines because right now Google cannot read audio. I'm sure it will be able to in the future, but right now that is not possible. So having a website with actual words from your episode is really, really crucial at this point in time. And even when Google can read audio, it'll continue to be super crucial going forward. So number 3, not everyone listens to podcasts on a regular basis. So if you have decent show notes and they happen to stumble upon an episode that is intriguing to them, then they may become a fan of yours and start tuning into your podcast directly from your website. But if you don't have a website, how is anyone going to randomly stumble upon you if they're not like a typical podcast listener? So I think it's important to kind of meet people where they're at and not make them jump through hoops to be able to find you. So I think that's really crucial. And then lastly, not only does not everyone listen to podcasts, think of the hearing impaired community. They may want to listen to your podcast, but they're unable to do so. So having a website with detailed show notes will allow them to learn from you without having to tune into the podcast directly because they may be dying to learn from you. But if your content is not accessible to them, then you're doing everyone a disservice. Yourself, the person that could potentially be serving. And yeah, it's just not a good look. So those are the 4 reasons why you should have a website. Like I said, it does not need to be a podcast specific one, but it's really important to have a website. I am a huge proponent of having a website. It's something you own. You don't own Apple, you don't own Spotify. Like they could pull you from that platform at any moment if you do something that they don't like. So having a website is always your best bet because you do own that. So yeah, that is it for today's episode. If you want to go check out the show notes for this episode, you can find them at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com. And I will see you guys next Thursday for the next episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com
and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.